The 124th Psalm, it reads as this. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side. Let Israel now say, if it had not been for the Lord who was on our side. When people rose up against us, then they would have swallowed us up alive. When their anger was kindled against us, then the flood would have swept us away. The torrent would have gone over us. Then over us would have gone the raging waters. But blessed be the Lord, who has not given us as prey to their teeth. We have escaped like a bird from the snare of the fowler. The snare is broken, and we have escaped. Our help is in the name of the Lord who made heaven and earth. The word of the Lord is blessed. Amen. You may be seated. This morning, I would like to title our sermon from this passage, How You Made It Through 2019. How You Made It Through 2019. Our children are with us in service on this morning because it's our custom every fifth Sunday. We would give our children's church workers a break that we are so grateful for. And so they're with us this morning, and they have an activity page, but y'all pray for them that they'll be able to get something out of the sermon. I do want to speak to them, but I also want to speak to you, Triumphant, as we close this year out together. It's good to see y'all, and I love y'all. I'm happy you came to church. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. Are y'all going to talk this morning to me at all? All right. All right. I just want to make sure you know. Thank you. I love you, too. I just want to make sure y'all know we newfangled and stuff like that, but we still old school, historically black church. We talk back to our preachers when they preach. So I asked y'all the last few weeks, make sure you laugh at jokes that the preacher preaches at. If he says something good, say amen. If he needs some help, say help him, Lord. All three of those apply to me this morning because I need the Lord's help. I have a $5 bill, young people, that I am going to give to the first person who raises their hand if they can tell me. I'm going to read out some quotes, and if you could tell me who said these things, you have to raise your hand. I'm going to go with hands first. If you could tell me who said these things, you can. It doesn't matter when the quotes might be until the last quote that you raise your hand, but if you raise your hand and tell me who said these things, I'll give you $5, all right? The first one is, if you ever dream of beating me, you'd better wake up and apologize. No. I should be a postage stamp because that's the only way I'll ever be licked. You can't guess again. Your guess is up. All right, go to the next one. I've wrestled with alligators. I've tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning and thrown thunder in jail. You know I'm bad because just the other day, I murdered a rock, I injured a stone, and I hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean, I make medicine sick. All right, Carter? Huh? Nope. I'm so fast. Last night, I cut the light off in my bedroom. I hit the switch and was in bed before the room was dark. He also said, I am the greatest. I said that I am the greatest. I said that even before I knew I was. I know he's too old. There we go. Come get your $5, Israel. Muhammad Ali. Right, you still won. Can I give you a couple of more? He says, it's not bragging if you can back it up. And one of his most famous quotes, I float like a butterfly and I sting like a bee. So all of these quotes are from who I believe is you put your hands down now, we're finished with that game. I believe is from the greatest boxer of all time, Muhammad Ali. Some will argue whether or not he is the greatest, but I believe he's the greatest to ever live. He is the original GOAT. But one thing about Muhammad Ali that most of you probably know, but if you cannot tell from these quotes, is that Muhammad Ali, he was known just as much for his boxing as he was for his mouth. He was known for his trash talking, brash trash talking, and he liked to brag on himself. It's putting it lightly to suggest that Muhammad Ali thought a great deal of himself. Almost to a fault, he thought a great deal of himself. There's probably no story that exemplifies this most than this story that is told about him. The story is that one day Muhammad Ali got on a plane and he sat in first class. And as the flight was preparing for takeoff, as with any other flight, the announcement was made for everyone to put on their seatbelt, to buckle up their seatbelt. And as the flight attendant walked down the aisle, checking to make sure that everyone had their seatbelt buckled, she passed by Muhammad Ali and saw that his seatbelt was not buckled. And so she gently, politely leaned over and said to Muhammad Ali, "Would you please buckle your seatbelt?" And after she said that, she just kept on walking and inspecting to make sure everyone had on their seatbelt. She came back through and looked again. Muhammad Ali still did not have on his seatbelt. And so she again gently leaned over politely and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Ali, but you have to buckle your seatbelt." Assuming that he would just comply, she went on and tried to do some more stuff to finish up preparing for the flight to take off. And she said, "Let me go check on Muhammad Ali one more time." And before they took off down the taxiway to take off, she circled back to Muhammad Ali's seat, and she was checking to make sure that he had buckled his seatbelt. And sure enough, Muhammad Ali still had not buckled his seatbelt. So she leaned over to him for a third time and said to him, "Mr. Ali, we can't move the plane until you buckle your seatbelt." To which Muhammad Ali said to her, "I don't need to put on a seatbelt." She abruptly responded, "What do you mean you don't need to put on a seatbelt?" Muhammad Ali replied, "Well, Superman don't need no seatbelt." And it drew the laughter of everybody else nearby her in the plane. But without missing a beat, the flight attendant quickly responded to him, "Superman don't need no airplane either." Now, as comical as that story is, I think it's interesting. It's an interesting antidote, if you will, as to where we are as a society. There's a sense in which our society, we have become so confident in our own ability, so confident in our own talent, so confident in our own intelligence, so confident in our own strength, so confident in our own wisdom, so confident even in our own giftings and education that we think we're like Superman and we don't need an airplane and we don't need to buckle up. That's how we treat God sometimes. It is this subtle suggestion that we can get along in life just fine without the Lord. And the way this plays out can be very subtle, y'all. It can go very unnoticed and even unmentioned in the way it plays out in our own lives. Because too often we operate as if we can live and make it without God. Sure, we say we need God. Sure, we say we believe in God. Sure, we admit that there is a God. But the truth is that even for those of us who profess to be believers in Jesus Christ, we can be real sometimey with God. We can get on the plane, need the plane, but we think that we don't need to buckle up and actually listen to what God tells us to do. We can think that we can fly in the plane because we're Superman, but not realizing that actually you can't get off the ground good without God. Sure, your talent can take you somewhere. Your intelligence can take you somewhere. Your wisdom and your education, it can take you somewhere. The folks that you know and the circles that you run with, the sorority and the fraternities that you're a part of, they can take you so far. But guess what? Eventually, you're going to start coming down, crashing like a plane. Because we can't make it without the Lord. We're real sometimey with God. We show up to church sometimes. Because we think that we can live this life without God, without getting his word, without the fellowship of other believers. We real sometimey with God because we don't read our Bibles like we know we ought to read our Bibles. We real sometimey with God because we don't think we need to come to Bible study because we too spiritual for that. We don't have time for that. We real sometimey with God because sometimes we don't want to pray and ask the Lord for help. We can be real sometimey with God, saying we believe in him, but in essence, we are doing life without him. Our passage this morning, though, is a real good dose of reality. If we allow it, it can be a great wake-up call, just like when the flight attendant jabbed back at the champ, the Louisville Lip, as he was called. And she confronted him in that statement by saying Superman don't need no airplane. She confronted him with his humanity. She confronted him with his frailty. She confronted him with his fallibility. And that's what this psalm can do for us if we would allow it. Through this psalm, these methodical and yet melodic lines and lyrics, they were originally penned for the Israelites to sing, but they can also help and urge us to see that indeed if we consider things honestly, we should be joining in the chorus that if it had not been for the Lord who was on our side. In fact, the lyrics of this psalm are not simply tailored to teach something. They are tailored to teach something, but they are more so tailored in such a way that they are to lead the congregation to join in song, singing this chorus, that the only way that they have made it thus far is because of the Lord who was on their side. This passage is an invitation and an urging to get to the place where we all join the chorus of praise and celebration. Because here's what I'm sure of, is that there's some of you who thought you would not have been able to make it through 2019. But you are standing here today. You're sitting here today only because the Lord made a way. The only way that you made it through 2019 is because the Lord has been on your side. Matter of fact, if it had not been for the Lord who was on your side, I got news for you this morning. You would not be here today. I don't care if you believe in God or not. You're on this plane of life, and this plane of life has carried you, and God has been piloting your plane whether you knew it or not. And if he had not been on your side, I shudder to think where we would be. There were some things that you faced in 2019 that if the Lord had not been on your side, it would have taken you out. You would not have made it through 2019. There's some things that the Lord did for you that your education could not do for you. Matter of fact, can I go back further than 2019? Because truth be told, all of our life, there are things that the Lord brought us through that our intelligence had nothing to do with. There are things that the Lord brought us through that our family history had nothing to do with. Matter of fact, there's some things that the Lord brought us through in spite of our family history and in spite of what we've been through. But the Lord has been on our side. This passage urges us. It prompts us to consider that it has been the Lord who has been on our side. There's a sense in which the psalmist urges them to join in the chorus at the beginning of this passage because it starts out with the chorus, if it had not been for the Lord who was on our side. But the psalmist urges the people and says it again, if it had not been for the Lord who was on our side. See, here's the sense. The sense is that we need somebody to pump and prime us sometimes. We need somebody to urge us to remember and to recall and to reflect over the breadth of our life and to remember, yes, it has been the Lord. See, unfortunately, as y'all know I've said before, too often we need to be prompted to remember the goodness of the Lord. Truth be told, we need a praise and worship leader. We need somebody to pump and prime us because we forget real quick. Sometimes our memories need a little refreshing and a little jogging to forget not all of his benefits and to remember that it was because the Lord who was on our side that we made it thus far. I've observed that we are far too slow in declaring our gratitude to the Lord. Often, you've heard me say it, we don't thank because we don't think. And often when we do think, we tend to remember what we should forget and to forget what we should remember. But notice something in this passage. Yes, he urges them and he repeats it at the beginning, but there is nothing self-congratulatory in this passage. This would have been hard for Muhammad Ali to read this passage and join in this chorus because he wants to congratulate himself, but there is nothing self-congratulatory about this passage. All of the credit belongs to the Lord. It begins by saying, if the Lord had not been on our side, and you hear how it ended it, our help is in the name of the Lord. All of the credit belongs to God. See, somebody needs to get to the place in their life where they realize, oh yeah, I might have gone to school, I might have got some education, but it was the Lord who gave me that intellect in order to be able to go to school and have good grades. Yeah, I might have a nice job, but it was the Lord who opened that door and provided that opportunity. Some people need to get to the place in their life where they are not congratulating their self for where they are, but they recognize if it had not been for the Lord who was on our side. The victory in this passage is ascribed entirely to the help of the Lord. This is a glad testimony sung by those who themselves know to be survivors, but they credit their survival to the Lord. They know that the only reason why they have survived is because of the Lord. So if that is you, if you know that you can attest to the fact that it is only because of the Lord that has been on your side, it is only because of the Lord's help that he is the only reason you have made it this year. You too need to join in this chorus. If you recognize that you know that the only way that you made it through 2019 was because of the Lord who was on your side, you need to join in this chorus, y'all. You need to be singing it with me and reciting it with me. If it had not been for the Lord who was on my side. This psalmist, he prompts them to first of all reflect. He gives us in the movements of this passage some ways that we can eventually join in on this chorus. And the first thing that we see in the end part of verse 2 and verse 3 is that they reflect on, he is causing them to reflect on what would have happened. Listen to verse number 2, the last portion there. It says, when the people rose up against us, then they would have swallowed us up alive. When their anger was kindled against us, then the flood would have swept us. The torrent would have gone over us. Then over us would have gone the raging waters. See, the psalmist, he is urging them to consider what would have happened if the Lord had not been on their side. Even what could have happened and what should have happened if the Lord had not been on their side. I love how the old folks used to say it. The Lord has kept me from danger seen and unseen. That's what the psalmist is lifting up here. He is saying, listen, you need to reflect on, you need to consider what has not happened to you, what would have happened to you if the Lord had not been on your side. He says that there were some people who rose up against us, and they would have swallowed us up alive when their anger was kindled against us. There have been some people, there have been some adversaries, some foes, some enemies, some opponents that you have faced and that the Israelites face that rose up against them, that have risen up against you. Anybody had some enemies this year who had the Lord not been on your side, they would have rose up and swallowed you alive. Matter of fact, here's the thing, is that you don't even realize that there's been some enemies that the Lord has kept from you because he's been on your side. That's the good news, is that there are things that you don't even see that the Lord has kept at bay because he has been on your side. See, there is something about the presence of the Lord that keeps things away. Anything that comes in your life, if you are with the Lord, you have to know they're not coming in your life because he was sleeping on the job. He's going to use that thing for your good. So there's some things that he keeps away that's not for your good, and you can endure the test of the storm for the things that he allows to come your way because you know he's going to use it for your good. I think back earlier this year, we preached from Joshua, and when Joshua and the Israelites went to Ai, they lost the battle at Ai. Even though God had told them that everywhere that they go, they're going to win, they're not going to lose. But they lost the battle at Ai because there was sin in the camp. And God says, I am going to remove my presence unless you destroy the sin in the camp. Here it is that they lost the battle because they had lost the presence of the Lord with them. And many of us, we need to repent of some sins because destruction will come our way if we lose the presence of the Lord. You need the presence of the Lord with you, or those enemies will rise up and they will have their way and swallow you alive. It is intimidating, daunting enemies that can potentially rise up. In June of 1963, Governor George Wallace, he defiled the federal court by standing in front of the University of Alabama in order to keep 2 black students from entering into the school. He said, they are not going to get into this school unless it's over my dead body. But the U.S. government had passed law, and they sent U.S. Marshals to go with the students to school that day. And so as they went to school that day, they were essentially saying to George Wallace, who said he was not going to allow this happen to happen unless it was over his dead body, they were saying to him essentially, either you can remove yourself or we can remove you. And so he had to get out of the way because of the U.S. Marshals that were with the 2 students. The 2 students were going to be safe, even though George Wallace didn't want them to get in the building. They were going to be safe because of who was with them. You need to know that there's some people in your life who are trying to say, not over my dead body. But all you have to tell them is, guess what? As long as the Lord is on my side, you will be defeated. You either got to remove yourself or God's going to remove you because I have the Lord on my side. I think about Joshua and when he came back and he gave the report with Caleb about what he saw in the promised land. And the Israelites, the other 10 spies that had gone out, they said that they're too big for us to overcome. But Joshua said, no. We can overcome them with the Lord on our side. They might be big, but our God is bigger. Guess what? They might be strong, but our God is stronger. They might be bad, but our God is badder. Hey, that's right. He that is with us is greater than he that is in the world. So the psalmist urges them to consider, to reflect about what would have happened, but not just about the adversaries, but look at verse number 4 and 5. It says, then the flood would have swept us away. The torrent would have gone over us. It says that over us would have gone the raging waters. See, in verses 4 and 5, he helps us to consider about in verses 3 and 4, he helps us to consider about the people that would rise against us, the enemies, the adversaries. But here in verses 4 and 5, he is helping us to understand that there will be some floods and even some storms that will not be able to overtake us. See, it's the imagery there of water rising up as the result of torrents, as the result of storms raging around us. And here it is that the Lord kept them even through the flood, even through the storm, even through the raging waters. So the psalmist is urging them. It's an invitation for us to reflect on the storms in our life, that if it had not been for the Lord on our side, that would have drowned us. That would have taken us out. Have you considered, are you able to reflect about the storms in our life that would have risen up like 40, 50 feet waves and swallowed us and drowned us if the Lord had not been on our side? Yes, the image here is the Israelites going through the Red Sea and the walls of the Red Sea going up hundreds of feet high. but it was the Lord who was on their side that kept them from drowning from the same sea that would drown the Egyptians behind them. See, here's what we need to remember is that some people are drowning by the same thing that you are making it through because of the Lord who was on your side. There was a couple who went on a cruise one day, and the storm started raging in the sea, waves and squalls 40 feet high. And concerned, the wife told her husband, you got to call this captain and ask this captain, why would you not avoid this storm? And the captain called back and said to send this message to the couple. He said, first of all, go to sleep. You can go to sleep because I'm staying up. And you can't do anything from your cabin to help with this, so you might as well just go to sleep and know that I, the captain, am staying up. The second thing you need to know is that this ship was built with this storm in mind. So it looks bad, but when we built the boat, we knew that this day would come. We knew that this storm would come. So this storm is not catching us by surprise. Matter of fact, it was built to withhandle the storm. So you just go ahead and go to sleep because the boat can handle the storm. Some of you need to get into this old ship of Zion because this ship was built to help you weather the storm. I'm preaching to somebody to help you out this morning, not to condemn you, but to let you know that you'll be able to wade through the storms in life if you're in this old ship of Zion. It was built to handle the storm. Go to sleep, my dear sister. Go to sleep, my dear brother. Go to sleep, my dear child, because God is the captain of the ship, and he's never going to fall asleep on the job. We can rest our head at night and sleep well because we know even though we're going through a storm and it might be raging, he's alive and he is well awake. And he has built a ship for us to make it through the storm. Hey, thank you, Lord. So in verses 2 through 5, in essence, we see the psalmist there urging them to reflect on what would have happened. But then there's a shift in the text. And beginning at verse 6 and 7, he is urging them to recall what didn't happen because the Lord was on their side. Here, let me read verse 6 and 7 to you again. Blessed be the Lord who has not given us as prey to the teeth. We have escaped like a bird from the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken and we have escaped. See, there's a movement in thought from what would have happened to what did not happen because he was on our side. See, there's some things that he kept us that we did not see, but there are also some dangers that he kept us from that we did see. Because they recognized that they had been in a snare and they could not save themselves. But now they have escaped. And they know that the only reason that they have escaped is not because they saved themselves, it's because the Lord saved them from the snare of the enemy. So we need to recall and to reflect. We need to reflect not just about what would not have happened, what would have happened, but we also need to recall what did not happen because the Lord was on our side. I don't know if any of you have been through anything in your life and you know that the only reason that you made it through was because the Lord was protecting you along the way. I don't know if I shared this story with you before, but Deacon Ben, he's sitting over there. One day I had to take him to the airport. He was going out to California. It's the first Christmas that he has not been in warm climate. But he was going out to California, and I dropped him off at the airport, and I was driving back down BW Parkway, and where BW Parkway and 295 comes together, I was coming over this bridge, and all of a sudden my car just spent out of control and did a complete 360 in the middle of the intersection, in the middle of the highway. And cars kept coming by me, and I pulled over to the side of the road, and I asked myself, how in the world is it that I spun 360, but nothing happened to me? Not even a scratch in the middle of the highway. Can I tell you how? Because the Lord was on my side. Some of you need to realize you've escaped stuff that other folks died in because the Lord was on your side. There's no explanation for it except that the Lord was on your side, protecting you and covering you and keeping you and providing for you and keeping your mind. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, it was the Lord who was on our side. But this is also where the passage preaches the gospel. Because if you do not know, Romans does tell us that the power of sin has been broken because of the work of Jesus Christ. Y'all, here it is that we have escaped the power of sin. We have escaped Satan's trap, not because of anything we have done, because we were all ensnared by that trap. Here it is because of what Jesus did that we escaped the trap and the schemes of the enemy. Oh, yes, we have escaped. Matter of fact, that is the song of those who have been redeemed. It is we who have escaped. I just wonder, is anybody here who is saying to yourself, I have escaped because of Jesus Christ? There was some sin that tried to keep me. There was some sin that tried to hold on to me. And I did not get myself out of it. It was only because of Jesus Christ shedding his blood that has power in it. When he raised from the dead, it's only because of the blood of Jesus that I have escaped. Yes, this is the testimony of believers. We are they who have escaped. We are they who have been saved. We are they who have been brought out of darkness into the marvelous light. And we didn't save ourselves. It was only because of the work of Jesus Christ. Sin was strong, but Jesus was stronger. My sin was great, but Jesus was greater. And the power of sin has been broken because of Jesus Christ. But this text, it shifts again in this last verse. The first few verses, the psalmist is urging the Israelites to reflect on what would have happened if the Lord had not been on their side. And then the next few verses, the psalmist is helping them to recall what did not happen because of the Lord who was on their side. But this last verse, verse number 8, he's urging them to remember where their help came from. Not even just remember where their help came from, but remember where their help comes from. Verse 8 says, our help is in the name of the Lord who made heaven and earth. Yo, there's a shift in this text because everything else that we have looked at has been in the past tense. What would have happened and what did not happen. But the text shifts to the present tense when it talks about our help. I think that it shifts to the present tense because we all are going to face some stuff in the present and in the future that we're going to need some help for. Yes, he has saved us. Yes, we have escaped. But the present tense here tells us that we have present help even in the time of trouble right now. There are some circumstances present that we're going to need his help. But we need to know that there is always help present. We all need present help. The sense of the passage is that he moves from the past tense to the present tense to note and to help us to realize that there will be future circumstances and even present circumstances. But God's track record is that he has always been present to help us. So he's been present before, so we know he can be present now, and we know he will be present in the future. Matter of fact, God revealed himself to the Israelites by saying, go tell them that I am sent you. Here it is. God is not past. He's really not even future. He doesn't exist within our finite time. He is eternal. So everything is present for him. And wherever you find yourself, you have to know that the Lord's help is present for you. I'm so grateful that I have present help. I'm happy that I don't have the same help that I got yesterday because there is a passage that tells us that we have new mercies that we see every morning. So what's undergirding this is that we need to have faith to continue to trusting in God, that he will help us. He is a present help in time of troubles. Y'all, this is good for me, myself, and I believe for you, because the reality is that sometimes we face circumstances that try to throw us for a loop. And in those circumstances, we often get swayed by the storm because we forget that God is a present help. See, yes, we look back, but there's something about that past and that history that doesn't bring it forward into the present. But we need to remember that he is a present help. I was listening to this preacher, Crystal Evans Hurst. Yes, for the record, I listen to women preachers, yes. Just in case y'all didn't think that I believed in women preachers. I do listen to women preachers. So I was listening to Crystal Evans Hurst, and she was talking about her son. She took her son. She has several children, but after football games, they take their family to the football games to see their oldest son play. And after the football games, they always stop by down in Texas. It's called, I used to think it was called Whataburger, but it's not Whataburger, it's Whataburger. So it's Whataburger. It's kind of like the Five Guys down there, right? And so she takes them by Whataburger, but they don't get soda at home. But when they go to Whataburger, she allows them to get soda. And so she said her youngest son, 10 years old, he's so excited to go to Whataburger because he gets to have soda. And so she says he's so excited that when they go to Whataburger, he gets his cup, and he gets it, the biggest cup that they have. And instead of just getting one flavor of soda, she says he gets a suicide soda. And he goes down every one and gets a little bit from every soda. She said the reason why I call it suicide soda is because after you've mixed all that tough stuff together, you drink it, it tastes like a suicide because it's just so nasty. But she says they left Whataburger, and he had his suicide soda with him in the car, and they were going down the highway, and she said that they hit some traffic, and when they hit the traffic, she put on brakes, and then, when you get to traffic and the traffic starts to let up, you just get so excited. There's a car, the two cars in front of you starts going. You're like, oh yeah, my turn is coming next. And so she was getting ready to go, and she said, once the road cleared up, she was about to go, and then the person in front of her stopped, and so she had to slam on brakes. She said when she slammed on brakes, the soda spilled everywhere. But she said she's a good mother, and so she wasn't concerned about the soda. She looked back to her son, and she said to her son, "Are you okay?" And she looked back to him, and his lips started quivering. He said, "Mom, my soda." She said, "Son, you're missing the point. You are okay because you had on your seatbelt. We can get another soda. This soda that spilled all over the car, it got into my purse and everything, guess what? That can be cleaned up. But you are safe because you buckled up." Somebody needs to realize in your life, it seems like the brakes have been pressed. And you're crying over spilled soda. It's not that the spilled soda doesn't matter. It's not that the spilled soda is trying to be minimized. It matters. But the thing is if you are buckled up, you have been saved from what really could have happened to take your life out. So if I can go full circle back to Muhammad Ali, see, the reason why we need to buckle up is because we need to be saved from eternal damnation in hell. Have you buckled up yet? What are you going to do when life presents a slam on the brake? Are you going to go flying through the window? Or will your soda just spill? See, here's the thing is that the psalmist is saying our help is in the name of the Lord. Who is your help in? Because the believers can say and declare loudly, our help is in the name of the Lord. There is something about that name That name has power with it that other names don't have. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were talking about, we all, well, not all of us, many of us like name brand stuff. And they were talking about somebody they knew who they had two identical vests. One had a name brand on it, and one didn't. I mean, they looked just alike. She said that they fit just the same, but the person only wants to wear the one that has the name brand on the vest because there's something about the name. And in our lives, we need to know that, yes, you can find help in other places, but there's no help like the help of the name of the Lord. Can I tell you why? Because he is the one who made heaven and earth. What are you trusting in? Did it make heaven and earth? Did it cause something out of nothing? I heard my friend said that when God said, let there be, everything that was not started straining to be. Because God spoke and he made heaven and earth. And that is the name that we trust. It is the name above all names. He is King of kings and he is Lord of lords. His name is stronger than any other name. His power is stronger than any other power. His might is better than any other might. There is nothing like the name of the Lord. It's so easy for us to lose perspective when the stuff spills in our life. But this passage comes to us and is precisely tailored to lead us to know that the name of the Lord's help is more potent than any advanced equipment, any force, any opposition, any difficulty, any trial, any storm, any enemy, any foe. And if I'm honest with you, what I'm learning when I'm wrestling with my circumstances in life is whether I can make it. I'm wrestling with whether or not I can make it. I need to confess that when I'm facing storms in my life, when I'm facing fear, when I'm facing whether or not the Lord is going to use me, whether or not I can pray for someone and they will be healed, whether or not I can speak a word to someone and it bring life to them. When I am facing that time, I'm wrestling with, I need to remember that it has been the Lord who has been on my side. It's not my gifting. It's not my talent. It's not even my title. It is the name of the Lord who has been my help. So when you are facing similar difficulties in your life, you don't know whether or not God is going to come through. You don't know whether or not God is going to heal. You don't know whether or not God is going to use you. I want you to remember that you need to trust in the name of the Lord. He demonstrates himself to be a faithful, consistent God. And if he is on our side, nothing can be against us. The answer to wild animals, to floods, to enemies, to foes, it is not to despair. The answer is to have faith in the living God, the one who is the creator of the universe, and to know that our help is in his name. When we need help, we must run to him for help. Any situation, circumstance, difficulty that we find ourselves in, we must run to him and cling to him for help. Don't be like Muhammad Ali and say that you're Superman so you don't need to wear a seatbelt, because you are not. Superman don't need no airplane. You need God in your life. We must run to him. We must cling to him. We must trust his edicts and not our own efforts. Stop trying to fix things in your own hands, with your own hands. Trust him, buckle up, and believe that his word is true. He's done it before and he will do it again. He's made a way before, and he will make a way again. Won't he make a way? In fact, I am standing here today only because he made a way. If it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, I don't know where I would be. I urge you to join in this chorus and sing this song. If it had not been for the Lord, I would not have made it through 2019. I wouldn't have made it through this past decade. I wouldn't have made it past 2000 if it had not been for the Lord. His name is stronger than sickness, more powerful than darkness. His name is bigger than mountains. What a name. That name. Oh, the name. What a great name. Because if it wasn't for your love, if it was